eMedica, the third dimension of human health. Before we speak of medicine, before we speak of disease, we must first understand what a human body truly is. The human body is not one system. It is three simultaneous, interdependent dimensions of existence, operating in concert every second of your life. The first dimension is physical. Your bones, your muscles, your organs, the visible structure that holds everything together. The second dimension is chemical. Every hormone, every neurotransmitter, every pharmaceutical molecule your doctor prescribes, the biochemistry that drives cellular function. And the third dimension, the one that modern medicine has only recently begun to fully appreciate, is electrical. Your body is, at its foundation, an electrochemical machine. It runs on voltage, it communicates through frequencies, and it lives or dies by the integrity of its bioelectric field. When all three dimensions are in perfect alignment, physical, chemical, and electrical, the result is what we call a healthy human being. But here is what most doctors and most patients do not know. Every drug ever prescribed, every therapy ever administered, every surgery ever performed addresses only two of these three dimensions, the physical and the chemical. The electrical dimension, the dimension that governs whether your cells can even receive the chemistry you are sending them, has never had a dedicated clinical intervention. Until now. Let us begin with the science. Every cell in the human body maintains an electrical charge across its membrane. This is called the resting membrane potential. In a healthy, fully functional cell, this charge sits between -70 and -90 millivolts. This is not a metaphor. This is a measured, reproducible, peer-reviewed physical reality. Published in the journal Nature Communications 2021 and confirmed across thousands of electrophysiology studies, the resting membrane potential of -70 millivolts is the hallmark of a living, functional cell. This voltage is generated by the movement of ions, primarily sodium, potassium, calcium, and chloride, across the cell membrane through protein channels. The cell membrane is essentially a biological battery, polarized, charged, ready to act. When this voltage is maintained at its optimal level, the cell membrane channels function perfectly. Nutrients flow in, waste flows out, hormones signal correctly, drugs bind to their receptors. The cell performs its function, whether it is a cardiac cell contracting in rhythm, a neuron transmitting a thought, or a pancreatic beta cell releasing insulin in response to glucose. Now here is the critical science. When this membrane voltage drops, a phenomenon called depolarization, the cell does not simply become less efficient. It enters a pathological state. Research published in Frontiers in Physiology 2013 by Yang and Brackenberry demonstrated that cancer cells consistently exhibit a depolarized resting membrane potential. Their voltage collapsed from -70 millivolts towards zero. Critically, this depolarization does not merely accompany cancer, it actively promotes it. It creates a cellular environment where uncontrolled proliferation is favored. Research published in Frontiers in Oncology 2022 confirmed that bioelectric dysregulation, the collapse of normal membrane voltage, drives all three stages of carcinogenes: initiation, promotion, and progression. Aging itself is now understood through this lens. A 2024 study in Aging and Disease demonstrated that membrane potential declines measurably with age, and that restoring it reverses aging-related cellular dysfunction.
But the consequences of electrical disruption extend far beyond cancer. When cell voltage collapses, the sodium-potassium pumps embedded in the membrane fail to maintain their ion gradients. Calcium floods into the cell. Mitochondrial function degrades. ATP production falls. The cell can no longer power its own repair mechanisms. Inflammation becomes chronic rather than acute. The entire chemical signaling chain, the very mechanisms your medicines depend on, begins to fail. Not because the chemistry is wrong, but because the electrical infrastructure that delivers chemistry to its destination has collapsed. Now let us go deeper. The body does not manage itself through chemistry alone. It manages itself through frequencies. Your brainstem, the ancient life-critical structure at the base of your brain, is the central command hub of your body's frequency network. Research published in The Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society, 2009, confirmed that the brainstem contains neural networks that are vital for life itself. It generates the rhythmic electrical frequencies that drive breathing, heartbeat, digestion, and immune function without any conscious input from you. These signals travel through the nervous system as precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses. Each organ resonates at a characteristic frequency. The heart generates a bioelectric field measurable up to 1 meter outside the body. The brain operates across 5 distinct frequency bands: delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma, each governing a different physiological state. When these frequency signals are disrupted by chronic stress, environmental toxins, electromagnetic pollution, metabolic disease, or sustained cellular depolarization, the body loses coherence. Organs lose their signaling precision. The immune system becomes dysregulated. The endocrine system loses synchrony. Pain becomes chronic, recovery slows, and the chemical medicines prescribed to correct these states arrive at cells that are no longer electrically prepared to receive them. This is the silent epidemic of electrical health dysfunction, and it has no pharmaceutical answer. Consider what happens inside an adipose cell, a fat cell, when chronic electrical dysfunction takes hold. The cell membrane becomes hyperpolarized or depolarized beyond its functional range. The lipid bilayer thickens with accumulated cholesterol. Intracellular lipid droplets grow, not because you are consuming excess calories alone, but because the cellular machinery that manages lipid metabolism has lost its electrical drive. The visceral fat that accumulates around and between your organs, the most metabolically dangerous form of fat, is not simply a storage problem. It is an electrical problem. The adipocytes have lost their sensitivity to hormonal signals, particularly insulin and leptin, because the ion channels that translate these chemical signals into cellular action have become electrically compromised. Research published in the journal Life Sciences 2023 confirmed that microcurrent stimulation directly modulates the adipogenesis pathway, regulating insulin signaling in adipocyte cells and significantly reducing fat accumulation. Research from the European Journal of Applied Physiology 2022 confirmed that microcurrent increases lipolytic activity, the breakdown of stored fat, and measurably alters energy substrate utilization during exercise. When eMedica's microcurrent reaches these visceral fat cells, it does precisely this. It restores the electrical environment of the adipocyte. Ion channel conductance is reestablished. The insulin signaling pathway is resensitized. The lipid metabolism cascade reactivates. Fat that was metabolically locked begins to mobilize.
This is not a weight loss claim. This is the documented biochemical consequence of restoring electrical homeostasis to a fat cell. Now we arrive at the most clinically transformative dimension of eMedica's mechanism. Medicine, whether produced naturally by your own body or prescribed by your doctor, must complete one final journey before it can work. It must cross the cell membrane. Every oral medication you swallow, every injection you receive, every hormone your endocrine system releases, all of it must eventually pass through the lipid bilayer of a target cell to reach its receptor or its intracellular target. And here is the reality that pharmacologists have documented for decades, but that has never had a clinical solution. In disease states, particularly chronic disease, cell membranes become hyperpolarized. The membrane potential locks at an extreme negative value. Ion channels close. Protein transporters stall. The membrane, in effect, becomes a barrier rather than a gateway. Your drug is present. It is in your bloodstream. It is at the correct concentration, but the cell will not open its door. This is why dosages keep rising in chronic disease management. This is why patients on long-term medications often require increasing doses to maintain the same effect, not because the drug is failing, but because the electrical environment of the target cells is deteriorating. Research published in Scientific Pharmacy 2011 confirmed that electrical current acts as a driving force for the permeation of both ionic and non-ionic drug molecules through cellular barriers, a phenomenon called iontophoresis. A 2025 study in Advanced Materials Technologies confirmed that plasma iontophoresis with electric current increased drug penetration efficiency by 6 times compared to passive delivery. eMedica's voltage current frequency therapy creates precisely this bioelectric environment at the cellular level. When the therapy is active, the resting membrane potential is gently restored toward its optimal -70 millivolts. Membrane protein channels, including the sodium-potassium ATPase pump, glut transporters, and ion-coupled drug receptors, reactivate. The lipid bilayer viscosity decreases, increasing membrane fluidity. Electroporation microchannels transiently form, creating pathways for molecular transport. And the electrochemical gradient across the membrane is reestablished, allowing passive and active transport mechanisms to function at full efficiency. The result? Medicines already prescribed by your doctor, whether for diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, or any of over 1,400 conditions, are delivered with greater efficiency to their cellular targets. The same therapeutic benefit is achieved at a lower dose, or a superior therapeutic benefit is achieved at the same dose. eMedica does not replace your medicine. It does not compete with your doctor. It completes the journey that medicine cannot finish alone. Balancing chemical health and electrical health simultaneously leads to genuine healing, not suppression of symptoms, not compensation for cellular dysfunction, but the restoration of cellular physiology itself, improving physical health as its downstream consequence. eMedica is an adjuvant therapy to be used alongside your prescribed medication under medical supervision. This principle has now been validated across 36 hospitals and clinical institutions across India, 4,651 patients, 17 peer-reviewed international publications, 0 adverse events recorded.
The journals publishing this data include Curious Journal of Medical Science, the African Journal of Biomedical Research, the Southeastern European Journal of Public Health, the Journal of Pharmacy and Therapeutics, Neuroquantology, Frontiers in Health Informatics, the Revista Electrónica de Veterinaria, the Asian Journal of Pharmaceutical Research, and the Indian Journal of Medical Sciences. Conditions where adjuvant support has been clinically observed include type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, hypertension, gout and inflammatory arthritis, thyroid dysfunction, both hypothyroid and hyperthyroid, HIV adjunctive support, post-surgical rehabilitation, Parkinson's disease, respiratory conditions including asthma, chronic pain,